and Recs Board. Let's start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our July meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. For the sake of time, we're going to jump down to some old business, and we're going to touch on the Willows mansion. And I thought what we'd do is I'd just give a little bit of an update as to the general status of what's going on from the Park and Rec standpoint, and kind of what is on the immediate forefront for upcoming. I guess over the summer at our June meeting, we had agreed as a board to have our planning committee take on the responsibility of gathering some fact-finding, some information, and trying to have that information to present to the Board of Commissioners. Somehow, some way, we ran into a little bit of a stumbling block, and we kind of brought that to a little bit of a standstill. We had another couple members of the Park and Rec Board that were scheduled to meet with the Township manager, and at the last minute that meeting was canceled. So I think at this point what I would recommend to this board, and we can maybe have some discussion, but with the upcoming RFP presentations due October 5th, I believe it is, I think what we want to do is kind of sit tight, wait for the presentation of the RFPs to be presented, and kind of gather that information and maybe take a look at them as a board and kind of move forward from there. I think having some discussions based on the process, I think we've kind of agreed that the process that we did have in place with the planning subcommittee might be a good one to continue some future fact-finding. And I think once we gather the RFPs, that we kind of take a look and see if we can maybe have some public meetings, some discussions, and generate some fact-finding information for the Board of Commissioners, and kind of take a look at a whole different information from all different sides, and to include the RFPs. Anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Just a comment on the RFP is, as a clarification, it's more just for us to get ideas of what's possible with the Willows. It's not anything set in stone of what we want to do with it or how we're going to proceed. It's more just for us to get ideas of what's
Correct.
Available out there and what other people's ideas were, and we're still going to go out to public before
Correct.
Any decisions are made.
To the best of my my knowledge and understanding of the process, the RFP process is for folks that have an interest in taking over and potentially utilizing or operating the Willows as ideas. Does not necessarily mean that the RFPs presented are going to be accepted. These are ideas. They're folks that are out in the public that are coming forward. They have, business plans, hopefully, ideas and ways to utilize the Willows, to hopefully better utilize the facility as to what the township is currently utilizing today. Is that fair to say, John?
Well, one thing, first of all, I want to make sure everybody understands we're talking about partnering. So this isn't like we're going to sell off the mansion or the other thing. So we're looking for a partner, public-private partnership. Second thing, when this stuff comes in and you're going to be the first ones to see it, and there's something you really like, we'll go with it. But it's also possible that we won't like any of the proposals. So we're not committed to awarding something to one of these proposers. There may not be any award. But if there's a great opportunity that comes forward, we'll go with it.
But there was talk originally when we talked about this about public participation and allowing them comments in that.
Yeah,
And
that's all going to happen. Andy can talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
I mean, basically, what the process that's in place that was discussed during the June and then July meetings was sort of more of a fact-finding type process, where whatever, where the group, the commissioners, us, whoever's going to be having to look at these RFPs and ultimately making some form of recommendation on the future of the Willows, have some kind of data or some kind of information they can use to base a decision upon. Part of that was to solicit public participation. That is still a very important part of this process. I can tell you that during the 2 months or 2 or 3 months since, I know Tammy and her staff have been working very hard to gather other data points that we sort of requested. Financials, I know that report was circulated around. I think it was, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it. It's extremely thorough, and it's something I think it's as financial reports go, a very good read. But then, yes, that one right there. But also got some original documentation as to what the initial purpose of the Willows, I guess the purchase of the Willows property was. Those are two, so basically you have like 3 of the 9 to 10 points that we were looking at already answered, but the public participation, I think it's just going to be delayed a little bit than we initially thought, but it's still a very central portion of this process. So whoever makes the decision can sit there and say, well, the public feels this way or the public feels this way, and then they can make the decision accordingly.
Thank you.
John or Elaine, anything additionally that you want to add? Okay. Any other board comments? No? Okay. Tammy, you want to jump up to announcements?
Yes, thank you. Upcoming Board of Commissioners meetings will take place on Monday, September 24th, and Monday, October 8th at 7 p.m. There's a special meeting that's scheduled to discuss the budget process that will take place on this upcoming Monday, September 17th at 6:30 p.m. All of those meetings will be held right here in this room. The next Parks and Recreation Board meeting is scheduled for October 11th, 6:30 p.m. Right here in this room. Both the Recreation Department's Fall Activities Guide as well as the fall edition of the Township newsletter are both available and in circulation. You can check those out at the Township's website at radnor.com. All of our fall programming right now and events are currently available, with the exception of the registration for the Radnor Youth Basketball Program. That date of when that registration is going to open is going to be announced soon. We expect that's going to be within the next 2 weeks. So please continue to visit the recreation website at radnorrecreation.com for continued updates, and don't hesitate to call for information. The PRPS discount ticket program is up and running for the fall as well for discount tickets to the PA Renaissance Fair, the Philadelphia Zoo, and the Baltimore Aquarium. So please call us for information on that. There's also a bid process that's going to be available for Radnor Youth Basketball's apparel. We purchase apparel for all the coaches and the players. That detail and specification is going to be available at the Township website within the next week. The Willows RFP process, as we had discussed just briefly here, was slated to have a public meeting on Tuesday, September 18th, here in this room. That date's going to be deferred, as we sort of currently discussed, and that date is going to be announced later and future dates. But I want to make that aware to the public, because that is out on the website currently, that meeting is not going to be held. The Wayne Business Association is going to have its Fall Festival this Sunday. It's going to take place up on North Wayne Avenue from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. The Active Aging event and Wayne Senior Center Open House, which is a partnership event between our department and the Wayne Senior Center, is going to take place on Thursday, September 27th from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. right there at the center. There's going to be all kinds of exciting things going on, and we're going to be having a cookout, so try to stop over for that if you can. A panel discussion on rain gardens is going to take place on Sunday, September 30th at 2 p.m. here in the Radnorshire room. Also getting into October, we have a fall harvest and great pumpkin hunt event That's going to be coming up on Sunday, October 7th at the Willows property. Look for information on that at the website. Also, that same day, the 10th annual Sarah McCarran Skunk Hollow Trail Cleanup is going to take place, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. Folks should meet at the Skunk Hollow parking lot between Sawmill Road and Newtown Road by entering off of Darby Paoli. This is the 10th annual event, so it's very popular. Trick or treat at the Township building is going to take place on Friday, October 26th, between the hours of 9 and 4 p.m. This is for ages 5 and under. Very exciting event. We had a great turnout last year. Also, the new Radnor Township Mystery Dinner Theater event is going to take place on Saturday, October 27th at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Willows Mansion. And the 35th annual Penn Medicine Radnor Run is going to take place on Sunday, October 28th, right here at the Township building. As I mentioned before, check out the website for more information and updates on activities. And that concludes the announcements.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Why don't we roll right into the activities report?
Tonight, for my activities report, I'm actually being joined tonight by two of my department staff members who I rely on heavily for a number of different items. Tiffany Heilman, our program coordinator, is here to my left, as well as Katie Diamond, our recreation assistant. And tonight, in place of most of my report, Tiffany's going to get up and she's going to give a presentation just to give an overview of basically what the summer programming looked like. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tammy, for announcing that. First of all, I'd like to thank Tammy. I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary here at the Township, and she has been an inspiration to me, working here and always trying to achieve more, being a great mentor with transitioning me into my position. So I want to start by thanking her. Great leader, and I'm really fortunate to have her as my director. I'd also like to thank our other staff members, Katie and Leah, for their assistance to our department. We would be lost without them. They provide a lot of support to us, and we really appreciate them. So I'm going to talk today about the summer summary. Overall, I think it was a very successful summer, especially since it was my first summer as the program coordinator. As with any program or anything, there can be highs and not so highs, which we definitely did experience this summer. But like I said, overall, I think things went very well, and we did have a great, busy summer. Okay, this first slide that you'll see is our programming and events that we offered. As you can see, in a totality, we offered 91 programs. Out of those 91, 29 were canceled, which gives us a success rate of 68% and a cancellation rate of 32%. When I say the 91 total offerings, it consists of programs, events, camps, clinics. They can be directly run by our department, contracted with a vendor, or in partnership with another entity. As you can see, a third of the programs were canceled. This can be due to different factors. We have a lot of challenges that we're facing right now in our department. We do our best to plan and advertise and to really promote the programs, but we are competing against other institutions, other programs, other camps. In a way, we're kind of competing against ourselves at times because we're offering so many camps and so many programs because we want to have that variety to our residents. In addition, while 29 may look like a large number of cancellations, you'll see on the next slide that even though we canceled 29 programs, our participation numbers did exceed last year's, which I will show in the next slide here. So as you can see, total participants was 2,977, it was 2,661 in 2011, so we had an increase of 316 participants from 11 to 12. You'll see the picture there of the Willows Mansion. That was an event we had, Shakespeare in the Park, where we had approximately 400 participants, which with that number right there, it exceeded our numbers from last year. We had 62 total successful programs and events, and if you break that out, it's 48 people per program or event, which we think is a great success. Transitioning program events and comparison. So the slide represents a comparison of 2011 to 2012, the totality of programs, events, the success versus the cancellations. You'll see an increase in the total amount of programs offered for 12, but also notice that canceled programs have tripled, as I mentioned earlier. Again, there's various reasons for cancellations. Most likely, the typical reason is due to low registration, but we do have other challenges we run into where an instructor could cancel last minute and then we have to replace it. They could have had multiple camps set up and ready to go, and then therefore we have to replace the instructor, replace the camp, and find a way to still offer those programs. So if an instructor was planning to run 3 camps, right there's 3 cancellations right off the top, which helps to bring that number all the way up to 29. Also, as I said earlier, we are competing with other institutions and businesses for participants. So it's another challenge we face, trying to find out which programs, we can program for our residents, what they want, and try to, really focus in on our populations. We have a lot of great programs, such as, of course, RDC, the concert series, in addition to other programs. And sometimes we get turnouts that we don't anticipate. So we're trying to focus on improving these programs and events. And they're at the top of our list as we continue planning for the future. Other challenges we face, facility costs. We're now being charged at Radnor Township School District, which has a great impact on our programs and events. So that's another challenge that we have to find a way to, still offer that opportunity to our residents. The economic impact to recreation from a resident perspective. If a family has to decide whether or not to send their child to camp or whether to pay their electric bill, of course we want them to pay their electric bill, and that's why we're trying to offer free events to our community, such as Shakespeare in the Park, new for this year, as well as Movie in the Park, our concert series, and all these free events where we can touch on a large group of people at one time, and they can still recreate, they can still spend time with their family and their friends. And I'm going to talk about these events in the next few slides here. The first Radnor Family Movie Night took place on Wednesday, July 11th at the Willows Park. It was a great night. I think you guys had a board meeting that night. Again, beautiful night with children's games, refreshments, popcorn, a great movie, Zookeeper, very family friendly. And we think we had about 250 people there, which, was a great turnout for the first year. The event went flawless, and we're evaluating a second movie night for next year. Continuing on. Shakespeare in the Park, as I mentioned earlier, took place 2 days later on Friday, July 13th at the Willows Mansion. This was in partnership with the Wayne Arts Center. I know when Tammy and I were setting up for the event, we were a little worried because it was humid that day. It started to sprinkle, rain a little bit, and we were thinking maybe we'll get like 100 people, 125 people. Well, it turns out that people flowed into the Willows that night. We ended up with about 400 people till the end of the show. So, a great turnout, great event, a beautiful location. We couldn't be more happy with how the event turned out. So we are considering adding another theater night pending sponsorship support. The next event we had was a night at the ballpark on Thursday, August 16th at Yankee Park. This was in celebration of Radnor Wayne's Little League's 60th year anniversary. It was a fantastic, successful event. Major planning and coordination was put into this event, but it was definitely well worth it. We had approximately 500 attendees, very family, kid-oriented, lots of activities going on. As you can see in the pictures there, we had slides and dunk tanks. We had the Reading Phillies mascot, Screwball, visit us, as you can see Tammy's picture there with him. We had a ceremony honoring the Radnor Wayne Little League where we presented a plaque to them. We had guest speakers. And then we had the Phillies, of course, on the big screen, 21-foot screen. A wonderful night. Great feedback from this event again, and trying to implement something similar for 2013. So switching over to our concert series, I'm sure Tammy has informed you that we've reformatted our concert series from 7 concerts to 4 concerts. That way we could invest our time into other community events as the ones I just recently mentioned. The bands that were scheduled provided a variety of music. St. David's opened the concert series with Steve Pillar and the Cool Beans Band, which catered to the children and parents. And then we continued to Fenimore Woods for the second concert, which featured Point Blank, a music that played 60s and up to current hits, followed by the Rocket Phillies, which was at Bill Connor Park. 7-person band that had a bluesy rock and roll style that we've been booking them for years. And then we ended with Mainline School of Rock Delta Squad at Clem-McCrone Park in August, which I don't know if you heard of their band or not, the Delta Squad, but it's about 30 kids, ranging maybe from 7 years old to in their early 20s, and they interchange at certain times, where they switch instruments, and each kid gets an opportunity to perform. And they played older hits to current hits. They had this indie rock feel, and they were very impressed. We were very impressed by them. They had this current indie beat, and it was great to see, aspiring musicians at such a young age, playing in front of the public. So, like I said, we had a great concert series. The weather was not in our favor this year. We did have to postpone 2 of the concerts. We also had a lot of high humidity on those Wednesday nights. But like I said, overall, we still had approximately 650 participants at the 4 concerts. We did hope for a higher turnout, but we are evaluating the series for the future, and we plan to boost the numbers back up for the concerts. Okay. Radnor Day Camp, our department's staple program. So I joined the Township, like I said, last October, and since I'm from central Pennsylvania, I didn't realize what Radnor Day Camp was until I began the interviews for the position and everything like that. During the last year, before summer started, Tammy explained to me, my role with the camp, and, did a great job of letting me know what I would be doing and how I'm going to be coordinating and hiring staff and all the different components of camp. But I don't think I realized the magnitude and the commitment of what RDC was, Radnor Day Camp, until that first day of camp, and I got a chance to live it firsthand on that first day. I soon learned that RDC is like no other. And as you can see from the graph above before you, RDC has persevered when other camps have dropped off, when other camps we had to close down. We had 229 total campers, up to from 2011, but we're still up, and we still have a wonderful camp that we're offering to our community. Speaking to the camp, I can't say enough about our staff. I think our leadership is the best of the best at the camp, and I think that's another reason why our families continue to come to RDC every single year. We also added 2 new components this past summer, the Leadership and Training Program and the Extended Day Program. So the Leadership and Training Program was led by one of our veteran staff, Ben Steele. The program is designed for campers going into grades 7 through 9. It gives them the opportunity to be mentored by our LIT director and camp staff in order to gain a basic understanding for summer camp operations and the leadership skills that are necessary to supervise campers. The LITs assisted in the supervision and interaction with campers and helped to enhance the camp experience by offering creative ideas and activities. So their typical day would consist of being a camper for half the day. They still were campers, just in our leadership and training program. And then they would observe and assist the group leaders and help with any tasks that needed to be completed, whether it's walking kids to another location, whether it's getting equipment, or whatever needed to be accomplished. At the conclusion of camp, I saw firsthand the skills that the qualities and skills that these leaders had learned, and I also saw the respect and gratitude they had for their LIT director. It was a wonderful program. We've received phenomenal feedback on this program, and we're looking to expand and continue it for next summer. We had a total of 15 LITs for 2012 with a waiting list. Our extended day program was another new component for Radnor Day Camp. This option is for campers to stay up until 5 p.m. at Radnor Day Camp because camp normally ends at 3. Kirby Brown, our tot lot director, was the director for the extended day portion with the assistance of 2 other staff. We received good feedback on this program. It provided flexibility that many of our residents need, provided that 3 p.m. doesn't always work for many people's schedule to be able to pick up their children from camp. We had 15 enrolled in extended day this season. We're evaluating extended morning hours and possibly even extended evening hours for the future. This next slide represents Summer Tot Lot. So Summer Tot Lot, along with Radnor Day Camp, have been 2 staple programs of ours. Unfortunately, this year we have seen a major decline in participation, and I think it has continued the past few years. This year we only had 19 registered for Session 1 and 24 for Session 2 for a total of 43. Last year we had 91 total registrations. As you can see from the pictures, the program offers excellent activities, special visitors who interact with the campers, and a beautiful playground at Ithan Elementary. Like other programs that are in decline, especially over the past years, we are evaluating this program under a microscope. There could be several factors contributing to the decline, and we plan to find a solution for its place and success within our department's programming for the future. Another new program, or service I should say, that we implemented was our discount ticket program. This was new for summer 2012. We partnered with PRPS to offer discount tickets. The program actually began in the winter as ski tickets, and then we transitioned into the summer with amusement attractions such as Six Flags, as you see on the screen, Hershey Park, Maury's Piers, just to name a few. We sold 310 amusement attraction tickets and then 46 movie tickets, and this is basically from mid-June until the end of August. We are evaluating this program as, we just started, and so these numbers are not included in the participation totals that you saw earlier. Our feedback has been great for the discount tickets. The residents seem to really enjoy them, and like I said, we're going to continue to evaluate it for the future. The next slide is our new programs / event success rate. So what I did was I took the new programs and events and tried to figure out basically, was it successful or not? What were the rates, what were the attendees for each new event? And what you see there is there was 3 new events that we added for the summer, and all 3 we feel were very successful due to the attendance and the way the events went overall and the feedback. So for the events, we had 1,150 new attendees for those new events. So we touched 1,150 people's lives with those 3 events. The other bars that you see there represent programming. We tried to implement 15 new programs, and 8 of them were successful. Within those 8, we touched the lives of 104 new attendees for new programs. So basically, what we're trying to do for the future is really think about the events and how we can continue to increase the events, due to one of the facts of just being able to touch more people's lives, within one event. We are going to continue to still offer the programs that we've been offering, but try to find a balance between those. So talking more about, goals for events, goals for summer for 2013, we have a few listed here. Expansion and improvement of Radnor Day Camp's LIT and extended day programming, and not just the LIT and extended day, but improving Radnor Day Camp overall. Again, it is one of our staple programs, and we do invest a lot of time, money, and energy into it, and we just want to continue to keep raising the bar with it. Same thing with extended day, LIT, and Tot Lot. Additional event implementation, again, second movie night possibly, another theater in the park event, of course, pending sponsorships. And then we thought about adding a car show. We think it would be very popular here in Radnor Township. Another goal is to increase partnerships with community entities. We love working with, anybody that's willing to work with us and help to provide recreation to our residents. So we want to continue to increase those partnerships, whether it be with the senior center, the art center, a community group, a team at the school, a PTO group, anybody, if they're willing to help improve the quality of life for residents, we're definitely on board with that. And the last is to overall increase participation of all programming and events and to get people involved and get them recreating. So I'd like to take a minute to thank the Parks and Recreation Board for all your support to our program, to our staff. I know that as a program coordinator, I don't always get the chance to talk to you guys, but Tammy is great with relaying messages, and she tells us how much you guys support us, and we really appreciate that. As we love what we do, so we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. Anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Tiffany, you said the Tot Lot was held at Ithan Elementary School? Where was Radnor Day Camp held?
It was held at the high school.
The high school. And what was the school district? What did they charge you? How was that handled this year?
They had a fee schedule set up for us.
Per participant or for the whole?
It was a block of time.
Block of time?
Block of time, yes.
And did that impact what you had to charge children that were coming to the camp?
It kind of fell at an odd time for us. the fee schedule went into effect in July. So it could affect, it probably will affect for the future, but we're evaluating.
Will you be able to provide us with like kind of a summary of what those costs were for the school, from the school district, so we have an idea of what's happening there?
I think Tammy has those figures.
Okay.
I can tell you that the rental for Tot Lot and for day camp, for their usage for the 6 weeks, but just as Tiffany had mentioned, prorated as of July 1st, because that's when the fee schedule went into place, was just over $21,000. So we're, as she had mentioned, we're evaluating that. We didn't actually increase the fee for the day camp program this year because of, the timeline on which everything had fell into place. It's always our intent to not try to increase fees as we go through the process of any of our camp, fee identification. But we may have to consider that in the future.
Did they provide a breakdown, Tammy, of how they came up with that $21,000 for you?
Yes, I actually put it together. The way the fee schedule is currently assembled for the school district, which I actually have a copy of it, I can show you during my fields presentation later tonight. Things are based on blocks of 4 hours of time. So if we use 3 hours, we're still being charged on a 4-hour basis. And it's by part of the facility, so by amenity at the facility. It's only interior, so we're not paying for any of the exterior fields, like loop field that we use heavily and the turf field. But rooms like the wrestling room, the gyms, each gym, the cafeteria, I think even the courtyard, the parking lots, things like that are also part of those blocks. Everything, I think, except for bathrooms maybe, but it's sort of the way that it's orchestrated. I know they have a pretty detailed fee schedule that they had put into place, which is actually setting up on their website. And custodial fees as well. Right. So custodial fees, security fees, that's basically it's an hourly rate that they had assigned that we had paid. So that's included in that number that I had provided you with.
And in the past, did we pay the school district anything for those camps?
We did not. No.
Thank you.
That was all part of the maintenance agreement.
Yeah. I was just curious as to how big a number it was. That's a big number.
And heading into the planning for Radnor Youth Basketball, which is part of why the program's not available right at this moment for registration, is we're reviewing that. As a matter of fact, Bob Nicholas is here tonight. We're going to be having a conference call with him tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our intent is not to raise those fees and find creative ways to maybe cut some costs within the program so that we don't have to do that. And of course, that type of analysis would take place across the board. We also paid for fees for camps that we have at the schools that are non-RDC tot lot camps, like we do a slam dunk basketball camp. We had a science camp that took place in Ithan Elementary Lodge, things like that, that also have fees hooked to them now, too, that we've realized that we never had in the past.
Have we given any thought to maybe going to the Agnes Irwin or Villanova or Cabrini or something and see if they have same fee schedules or better? Or
We did. We actually spent a good bit of time doing some diligence at the front end of summer because we knew that the fee schedule was going to be coming into play on July 1st. We had reached out to Eastern University. We've been in touch with St. Catherine's and a couple of other institutions within the community. As a matter of fact, we worked extensively to develop a really great sheet of all of the institutions in town and their contacts. And what we actually found is that the rates at the school were more competitive than what those rates were that some of those schools could deliver. And with Agnes Irwin involved in a hefty project right now, they unfortunately weren't an option, but could potentially have been a good partner. A lot of the fees were cost prohibitive, and St. Catherine's didn't have availability, for instance, but were really willing to work with us. But they had a strong programming base this summer of their own, and there just wasn't availability there.
Gotcha.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
Thank you, and certainly given the landscape of heading into the summer camp program and the season, you guys had a lot on your plate, and looks like you came through with flying colors. So thank you both, and the staff, and great job, great job. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate your presentation. As Tiffany mentioned, she started in just October. It's amazing that she's going to be at 1 year anniversary here already. It's really gone by in a blink of an eye, and we've been really fortunate to have her. As you guys know, it's been a rough going here for a couple of years, and I've been blessed to be surrounded by great staff members, not only with our intermediate department members, but our wonderful public works staff as well. In supporting us. So for all the programs and the events that you see up there that have been successful, they've played a large role in that too. And I can tell you that moving a 9-foot table is very heavy on the night of a concert. And Mark and his guys deliver those out to all of our events. And I don't know how they do it. We're going to hopefully work on getting lighter tables for the future. But those guys really do a great job. They're unsung heroes in helping and supporting to the success of our events, and of course our programs too, because a program like Radnor Day Camp has a lot of supplies. What I also want to do is I want to take an opportunity tonight to recognize Tiffany. She's done a tremendous job with our department. She jumped in at a difficult time where we had some changes in staffing, and the way we were doing things was shifting and changing, and with the overall management at the township. Also at a supervisory level with her role, she's doing things that when I was in her role that I really didn't do relative to budget and planning, identification of new revenues, new ideas, not only at the department base but also at the township base. Also, we had Tiffany involved in a lot of levels of planning for the township budget, as Mr. Zinkowski of course leads with all of the township departments and the supervisory level staff. So I think of her as a lot more than just a programmer, because she plays a role into a lot of the other operations and idea sessions and things like that go into overall planning for the township. So she comes to us with a wealth of experience. She did come from Central PAs. She had mentioned she was with an organization called GEARS, which was Greater Elizabethtown Recreation Area, which was sort of like I guess like a consortium, sort of, but a nonprofit organization that worked off of a township. So she did have extensive experience, and we're very thankful to have her. She's jumped in and she's really hit the ground running, as you guys know, with all the new events and things that are going on. So I do want to recognize her tonight. I want to give her this nice certificate of appreciation for all of her hard work and effort. So thank you. Thank you. So, and I also have Katie Diamond here tonight because I want to recognize her as well. Katie actually started with our department in December of 2009. She was an intern that started just over Christmas and over the holidays. And I remember we were getting all the basketball apparel together to distribute to the hundreds of basketball volunteer coaches that we have. So she jumped in and hit the ground running with us too. Actually started in advance of her internship. She was beginning a 12-week internship at Penn State University, which was where she graduated from in May. So she spent a long time with us, and she spent the summer working for our department as well and helping us oversee the operations with camp. Again, that was sort of the tip of when our department was shifting and changing, and she stayed with us all along and has been contributing a lot of knowledge and wisdom, of course, with her background. She worked a little bit up at Plymouth Recreation Center, so she has a good background. She's got a good degree in sport and recreation management. She also spends a lot of time for us right now marketing and communicating information out to the public, because that's a big part of what we do, marketing with e-blast communications. She updates all the portions of the website, which I can tell you is not an easy task with the system that we run, so she puts a lot of time and energy into that. She also runs some of the program's development for us as well, so I want to take an opportunity to recognize her because she has really worked hard for our department. She's hung in there during some difficult times that we've come through. And one of the things I can say about her, as well as Tiffany, these guys really get the job done, and they get it done fast, and they're efficient. They come in to work every day with their head just ready to get the job done. And it's really a great atmosphere to work in with those two. So if you could come up, Katie, I do want to recognize you and just say thank you for all of your hard work. And we hope that, of course, for both of you, that it's many more years to come. Thanks. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tammy. Is there anything else on the activities report, or we?
No, the only thing I would want to follow up to as far as the activities that we've been going through in July and August is that we have worked a lot towards the Willows Mansion in terms of fulfilling the roles of Mary and Tom, who, as you know, left us in early June. And fortunately, we had a department intern that was on board with us as well this summer from Westchester University. So there was some time at the beginning of summer where we had camps going on in the facility, because we had over 45 days of camps happen there this summer, where he actually went over and he set up tables, set up chairs, cleaned the bathroom, cleaned the toilets, did those custodial-based duties that Tom had taken care of, Tom Conahan in the past, who was the prior caretaker. And then we were fortunate enough, we did hire a building coordinator. His name is Michael Di Baptista, and he's on board with us right now on a part-time capacity, taking care of not only department events that are happening, but also weddings, parties, things like that that are happening sporadic. Like for instance, for September, we did have three events that were scheduled in there. And in August, we did have 7 weddings and I think 1 or 2 parties as well. And then Leah McVeigh, along with our part-time supervisor for the Willows event, she's been on board for a while, Betty Haynen. They've been sort of co-handling the director-level duties that Mary had taken on. So there's been a lot that has come down the pike, of course, with increased job duties and time as far as those 2 positions have gone. And right now we're handling those in-house as best as we can. Obviously, having Michael to do the building duties has been a big help, and it's been at a light impact on our public works department as well. So that's kept us busy this summer. I do want to point out we do feel we're in a good position moving forward with the way we have the director duties handled at the facility. I don't anticipate we're going to be hiring someone for that role moving into 2013, so we feel comfortable where that is. So that really concludes my announcements on that, but I wanted to give you guys that update about the Willows.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, we have a shade tree report.
At the recent meeting, there was nothing of import for the Parks and Rec Board, but
Perfect. School board, we have nobody representing. Any committee reports? How about anything from EAC?
Next meeting is next Thursday night.
Perfect. How about commissioners? John, anything from commissioner's standpoint?
Just that we're continuing in this budget cycle, and it's quite challenging. It's amazing the amount of information that we currently have available to us. I think John Fisher said it the best. If you want to characterize this past year, it's been a year of knowledge. We now have a budget model that we can go in and play with any number, any of the assumptions, and understand the complete effect of it. So if we talk about manpower, it's not just manpower. It's, it's their retirements, it's OPEB. So it's probably the first time we've ever had that level of information available to us to make decisions with. And I know Tammy will tell you Bob's pushing the staff really hard. We're looking for alternative ways to bring in income, challenging them to think that way, challenging them to think how to cut expenses without cutting quality or services. So it's been a good year. The commissioners have met twice as much this year than we had previously. So.
Okay. Thank you. New business we've covered. Why don't we flip down to athletic field park fee recommendation?
Well, as John had just mentioned, fee revenue generation obviously is a topic that sort of segues into athletic field and park usage fees. It's definitely something that we certainly have been thinking very creatively about, relevant to all areas of our services. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on what the fee schedule has looked like in recent years, something which you should probably be most familiar with here, of course, are the fees that you see on the screen that have been applied, like I mentioned, in the past few years. Specific at the top, you see there adult softball, soccer field fees. We had previously charged $275 per team, and then when we had a per night usage, it looked like $60 per night. Then we had recently a $10 per player fee per season for our Radnor sports community groups that we had introduced at the beginning of 2012 that applied to our community sports groups like soccer, lacrosse, and baseball, and that was a $10 per head fee we had illustrated. And then taking it a step further there below for the non-sports community groups like our school institutions, private schools, parochial schools, and what have you that would use fees or use fields, we implemented the $15 per head per player per season fee. Those fees were all actually repealed at the February 16th, I believe, Board of Commissioners meeting, just so that further examination could be underway. At the time, there was a lot of discussion about the grounds maintenance agreement, of course, and what was going to happen to the future, what the school district was going to charge, what the township was going to charge. And our department, along with the commissioners, felt that it was best to repeal those fees so that further examination, of course, could take place. Keep in mind, too, that original fee schedule structure was designed around the notion that usage by these groups took place at two entities. So those folks would actually pay these fees. They're not only paying for the school district fields that they would have usage of, but also the township fields that they would have usage of as well. So if you look on down into the next box there, prior to 2012, the same notion applied relevant to those fees. Obviously, the softball field lights and the turf field lights, are no longer applicable right now, but those were illustrated in the fee schedule. So what you're looking at is exactly the way it had appeared in the consolidated fee schedules that were available. Back in 2010, there was a youth sports maintenance fee, which this board, I do not believe, ever had any input on. That was implemented. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a $10 per participant fee that was incorporated to all youth sports that had actually been incorporated, and then it was proposed, originally it was going to be proposed for the 2011 fee schedule, but it was removed because the township had gotten recommendation by its legal counsel to indicate that we can't really dub it a maintenance fee without, making sure that maintenance and preservation of the fields and everything are in top-notch condition at all times, so that it could actually have legal implications for it if this fee's paid and something happens to someone on those fields. So the fee wasn't proposed, and in the meantime, no fees were being collected at that time. So what I'm looking to do moving forward is to take a look at our fee schedule. Obviously, right now, we're only scheduling township fields, so it leaves us with a little bit of a different perspective in terms of, how we approach this. And I have to admit, it's been a difficult process because everything from, looking at the neighbors, neighboring townships to even townships, as far out into different counties and even in the central part of the state, it's very difficult. It seems to me like things aren't consistent, and a lot of folks are doing things a little bit differently. So I tried to keep in mind what the averages have been, as well as just trying to look at what we're doing and who we schedule on fields. So what I would like to propose as an amendment to the fee schedule, keep in mind, just going back for a moment, right now there are no current fees in place. So Township's not collecting any fees relevant to fields as far as the fee schedule goes relevant to fields. So I know the commissioners had wanted me to take a look at this and come back with a recommendation, of course, and I had given them an update in June as well as this board say that I would do that, and that's why I'm before you now. So going to this slide, as far as I'm looking into fall 2012, our adult softball soccer field fee, I don't think it was ever really termed correctly, so I want to eventually see it restated as adult league team field permit fee. So, and it's for softball, adult softball groups, adult soccer groups, adult baseball groups, etc. Because we get a lot of those that could be anything. So I think it was restrictive in the way it was termed. So I think that's one thing that needed to be looked at. As far as what that fee should look like, that $275 per team, I think is something we're still working with. We have 2 adult softball programs that currently play and they use fields, specifically Donna Lane, our South Devon complex and Philippone complex. So we're looking at that with them. So I'm not proposing any type of amendment on that fee at the given time. What I would like to do next below that is to take the, again, adult softball soccer field fee that was $60 per night that was repealed. I want to reinstate that, and I want to reterm it and call it a field permitting fee, just a basic blanketed fee that would actually, cover one-time usage costs for. We get adult groups that request it. We get sometimes youth groups that requested that, aren't youth groups, that are Radnor youth groups, and having a field fee of $60 per field per usage, which is a one-time fee. I would like to reinstate that fee so that's there to cover those requested usages. For the Radnor sports community groups, no fee is going to be proposed at this time, nor is one going to be proposed unless it was to be further discussed or asked by me for 2013. On the flip side, for our restricted private educational institutions and organizations, I would like to reinstate the previously repealed $15 per head fee for those organizations per season, not to exceed a 10-week period. And that pretty much includes our St. Catherine's, Sacred Heart. We have a couple of others that might fall into that category too. So the intent would be to put that into place to be able to cover those. And I've actually...
Do you know, is the school charging the sports organizations a per-child fee or a per-player fee?
They
like
are
this
not.
15? The 10 or the 15?
No, they're not charging any of those.
Okay.
But the fee of $15 would not apply to Radnor Youth Soccer. It would not apply to Radnor
Right.
Youth Baseball. It wouldn't apply to those.
Right, okay.
So Radnor soccer, this doesn't apply to Radnor
No.
soccer or Radnor Youth Lacrosse. This is to outside.
Right.
Private crews.
Yeah.
But Radnor Township School District does charge private organizations for the use of their fields.
They do, yes, they do. Let me just back up. Actually, I want to jump to this because I think this will kind of help everybody visualize a little bit exactly how township fields are being utilized. One of the great things we've been able to do in the last year, and although it's not a perfected system, is that we've been able to track the field usage. We created a system for doing that that I think has been really helpful to the department, because I have to be honest with you, in 2010 when I came into this role, I didn't understand how the field system worked. So we put in a method of recording half-hour usage increments by all of the requested usage that we get for fields. And what we've tried to do is assemble those requests into sheets that have been able to deliver us with this data to basically give us an illustration to show us, out of all of our users as far as a percentage, here's what that breakdown is out of 100, which is why you see these percentages here in terms of how this is laid out. So I think this gives a pretty good representation of who those groups are and sort of what their slice is within that pie. This was in 2011. In 2012, we did document some field usage, although inconsistent to the current process that we have in place. But the current process, I do want to make a note, it doesn't take into consideration that there's inclement weather days. There's days that groups don't practice because they don't get enough players, or there's sometimes changes with fields that happen between coaches that we're not aware of. This information, this data is reported strictly on what they've requested from us that we get through the application process. So we've gone back and we actually have documented that in a very mammoth spreadsheet of every day of the year, believe it or not, in terms of every half hour of every day during a regular schedulable, if that's a word, day, from a certain time in the morning to a certain time at night, and that's how we've looked at this. So when we do look at, you know, our total breakdown, obviously, you know, community sports usage, which you see in the yellow shades, I tried to represent those and include the township usage in that as well, because we do make up a large portion of that. And relevant to fees, there wouldn't be any direct impact on charges to any of these groups. The green slices obviously point out the school district's usage on township fields, and that wouldn't, we don't propose any fees that are going to take place for them as well at this given time relevant to outdoor space. So what we do see here is Sacred Heart, St. Catherine's, and then of course Agnes Irwin and Barak Academy are in orange also. But I'd like to recommend that maybe they're waived of usage, perhaps because they have been really great partners and really great neighbors to us over the years, and they have provided us a significant amount of gym time and field space for different programs over the course of the years, and I'd like to really sort of put them in a separate category as we look at this going forward. So if I back up, and I think you all have a paper copy of this in front of you to take a look at. So if you need me to go back to any of the other slides, just let me know. So just to restate this, you know, for the community sports groups, no proposed fee at all, and then we're looking to try and amend the fee schedule to include a $15 fee for the Sacred Heart group and for St. Catherine's specifically, or any other institution, of course, that would come to us that we're able to accommodate. Right now, that's, you know, it's difficult to accommodate. We get a lot of requested usage from Valley Forge Military Academy and sometimes some of the other nearby institutions, and that makes that difficult to make those accommodations just because there's just not enough field space to go around. And obviously the impact to the fields is great that, you know, we try to keep usage, you know, manageable and also keep the fields in good shape. This is just a breakout of the hours of athletic field usage by group. Again, 2011 is what's being represented here. It's the first full year to really have any data to go off of. This is what we've scheduled. This is what this looks like. Again, there could be inconsistencies based on information that we have that's been reported to us. So, you know, there might be some numbers here that are off slightly, but you could see for township fields, you know, we're looking at about over 6,000 hours of fields of hours that we schedule. For district fields, 3,000. And then the difference obviously would be what we're probably not scheduling now as a result of not scheduling the school district fields anymore, roughly 3,000 hours. And the flip side of that is that we now have Radnor Memorial Park, which utilization of that field was minimal as we had looked at it, you know, 09, 10, 11. Moving forward, arguably that number at Radnor Memorial may make up the difference of what we're now no longer scheduling at the school district. So basically it has impacts, you know, on our administrative communications, our administrative, you know, time that we spend, you know, having discussions with the fields, having discussions with the district entities. In this case now, it seems like we're doing that much more with Agnes Irwin. Is it to the volume of what we did it for the school district? No. But it definitely has sort of, you know, we've sort of taken one piece away of time that we put in relevant to fields and sort of been replaced a little bit. And there's a learning curve with Radnor Memorial, of course, too. Being a new field, there's some new moving pieces with it that I think that they'll ease, you know, in the coming year, in years to come. So if I move on, the proposed fee schedule, these are the groups that would pay. Again, I shaded Barak Academy and Agnes Irwin. I tried to isolate them because I do, yes.
Tammy, on this graph, or this chart, who would pay for fields under proposed fee schedule? The community sports organizations are not paying anything. Is that correct?
No,
That's not correct.
they are not paying
is
anything.
correct.
That is
Okay.
correct, sorry.
If that's not correct, I read this chart saying, who would pay for fields under proposed fee schedule? And it says community sports organizations collectively 66%.
I apologize.
disconnect.
It's a disconnect. It's what I have shaded in yellow that would pay. I'm
Gotcha.
trying to sort of white
That's
out
Sacred Heart,
and
St.
fade out. I
Catherine's.
apologize.
Okay.
I'm trying to white out the groups that wouldn't apply, that would be
Okay.
that wouldn't be applicable.
Thank you. I misread that then.
So Sacred Heart, St. Catherine's, the Adult Baseball League, the Adult Softball League, they would apply under the fee schedule.
With regard to the Adult Baseball League, looking at the slide that said field fees collected 2010 to 2012, which was a chart,
Ahead.
the bottom of that chart said Adult League fees 2010, Adult League fees 2011, paying $58.70 and $77.60 in 2010, 2011 respectively. That's a substantial dollar amount when compared to the anticipated revenues based on current use if approved, which in the aggregate was $6,900. Why are you recommending to keep that under evaluation as opposed to making a recommendation on what is a significant part of the revenue?
Well, first of all, I want to make a distinction that I'm not trying to get back to where the revenues were. I'm just trying to illustrate them because I don't think you guys have ever seen them before. So I think that it's important that you actually see, what we did collect under the previous fee schedule. So I want to make that distinction first of all. As far as the way the fee schedule was designed around the collection of these fees, it was that $275 fee, which I believe you're referring to, it was designed around the fact that they were getting usage at the school district, at the township. So now these groups are paying primarily the school district. So I need to sort of understand their usage a little bit better and what their profile on township fields has been, so that I don't come back to them with a fee and then they just can't pay it, and then they put all of their usage at the school district and then they're no longer using township fields. Because I realize that there's some restrictions to what they can charge within their programs, and I wanted to have an opportunity to work a little more closely with them to understand that. So this is we have two specific adult softball leagues that I'm referring to that would fall into this category.
And I assume that there's an overcapacity of need for adult softball leagues than what the school district can provide. And therefore, there would be some usage of the township ones. So as part of your evaluation, to probably come up with a number that's somewhat comparable to what the school district would have. So it would be a non-decision maker for those groups to decide which field they would use. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, if they have their fees plus our fees that then they send back to their players to pay, like I said, I wanted to be careful going through the process there so as not to overcharge. Because if I come back with a fee that's the equivalent without understanding what their use is, you know what I mean, in terms of the time that they're using our township fields, I just didn't feel comfortable just putting a fee to match the school district, so to speak, if that's what you're saying. Because then it would really, and I've had these conversations with these groups, so I know that there's some, growing pains with it that might have to go into play. They may have to raise fees, which is something they're going to have to digest because certain fee recommendations may be palatable versus others, and everybody wants to pay the lowest fees possible. But I think it's understanding the dynamic of the usage, and I gather from these groups, based on my discussion, that their preference of play is at the school district facilities. I think they provide a little bit more in terms of the amenity with lights and things like that, and field space. So I really think it involves a little bit more analysis for me. But by the same token, I want to work with the groups so as not, I don't want to lose groups. I don't want to create a situation where we don't have groups using fields because they can't afford to be on them.
Why wouldn't you prefer to complete that evaluation prior to recommending a partial schedule?
I feel a sense of responsibility for our department in continuing to not generate any fees for fields. I do believe that, you know, in working extensively with some of the groups that would apply here, that it's time for a fee to be in place.
I could see where the adult softball would fall toward 2013 scheduling now. So as part of the thought that these would be fees that would be instituted now, recoup the fall season.
Yes.
And then the softball would then come in later. at that.
Exactly, yes,
Okay.
because we don't have that use, the adult program usage during the fall, but we do have the other youth usage that's currently going on. And those groups I've had discussions with, particularly St. Catherine's, I've had discussions with them. They know I'm having this conversation with you tonight.
Is the usage from these particular groups, is it consistent year over year over year?
It has been, but it's difficult to say based on this year and the grounds maintenance agreement discussion.
Yeah.
Because
But it's typical.
I think that has created definitely a benchmark in the process where, you know, we do need to continue to analyze the usage to make those determinations.
Who determines the participation number? If you're going to do a per head,
I would work with the leader of the organization and/or boards that represent those organizations to, in good faith, develop what that number is. So, like, when you look back
Right.
to the numbers that were reported based on this slide, basically for that youth maintenance fee that was collected, it was just it was a process that took place between the prior director and, of course, the heads of those organizations to assemble that.
has there been any discussion, or was it discussed to just have a flat fee for St. Catherine's football to use a field as opposed to a per head basis? Or St. Catherine's lacrosse, or soccer, or whatever the sport or activity may be?
It was a consideration. It seemed to be inconsistent as it's applied to the multitude of users. Because the hope is that there's going to be more users in the future that may end up on fields for this to apply to. I did give that some consideration, and it seemed to be the best approach, following up on the past practice on the way that was taken care of. And seemed in consulting with Leah McVeigh, who oversees the sports fields and the scheduling and manages a lot of the communications. It seemed to be the easiest for us to manage and apply. So this was the anticipated revenue, Mike, that I believe you had spoken about there, and it's certainly not, what was collected in 2010. Would we like to get back to what that number was? Sure, we would like to generate revenue for our fields.
And is the primary reason that the revenue declines so much because the prior revenue calculation included the utilization of the school district fields in fees paid to the township for usage?
I think that could have been part of it, but it was also applied to more users.
I beg your pardon?
It applied to more user groups. So if I go back,
Oh, right,
if we
the
look,
the community
sports
organizations.
groups, made up a large composition of what those fees were that came here. And I know on the flip side of that, those organizations are trying to make efforts in other areas and coordinating other other contributions and upgrades to fields and things like that, and working with the township.
How many different activities are included in the St. Catherine's number of anticipated revenue?
And the anticipated, I believe it's 3. I need to check on that exactly.
Okay.
2 for the fall, I believe, and 1 for the spring, if I'm not mistaken. Bob, you might even know the answer to that. Their current groups that are out there. And football. So 4. Okay.
That number seems light. But
So is there a township pressure because coming on Parks and Rec, because in effect this is a reduction in revenues from previous years with the implementation of this fee schedule?
Well, what do you mean, is there a, can you
Well, in 2010, we had fees paid of $9,853, $63, and now we're projecting $6,900 in fees paid. Part of this whole effort began to try and increase fees paid to offset the cost of maintaining the fields and the parks in the township.
Mike, it's kind of an apples and oranges, because in the past, you weren't seeing the expense of maintaining the school district fields, for example. This year is the benchmark year, really.
So you're saying, if I understand that, although the revenue's lower, we don't have to pay out as much because we're not maintaining the school fields. Is that what you meant by that?
Exactly.
Okay. So we may not need, I mean, we always need money, but we may not need the 9,000. We may only need the 6,000. Okay, all right.
And just to clarify, the intent behind the fields and the fees is to cover our administrative time, our administrative portion of our department relevant to field scheduling. When we take that percentage and breakdown of our oversight of facilities in general, we have a percentage of time that we've been asked to allocate towards what we spend in terms of time relevant to our parks and our facilities. So whether or not that's scheduling picnics, the Willows, Sulpizio, we have an identified percentage, which is, I think it's roughly like 12 to 13% of time that we identify our department staff members that we put towards
Administrative
this.
time. So you're
Administrative
talking, it's a lot.
time.
It's generating, as I said to Jim, generating a lot of discussion over $6,900. And then I'm looking here and scratching my head. And I guess basically what we're trying to do is generate some revenue to cover those costs that we're encountering administratively in scheduling. And I have no problem with that, but it is taking a lot of time, over $6,900. So
I agree, because if you take $6,900, it probably translates into 136 hours of people time. And I suspect you spend a lot more than, as a department, a lot more than that on scheduling fields.
We do. I mean, like I said, if it makes up, I mean, we haven't really looked at it, specific hours, of what we spend. We're estimating
You just said
percentage.
12 to 13%.
Yes, but we've looked at that as an estimate of how much time, and we haven't really we haven't broken down every single hour that we spend towards it. We've calculated hours. I think, or we've calculated, an assumption of our hours, of our percentage of time, as a whole on what we spend. Just like we look at programming, we look at marketing, we look at, programs within the community that we lead, that maybe aren't, directly ours that are run, or things that we're involved in. Certain projects and things like that we're involved in is identified as another percentage, and that's where we arrived at that. Now, Leah, I believe, did actually try to break her hours down as best as possible. Right now, I don't think Tiffany really puts too much time towards actual scheduling of fields of fields specifically. I know she's involved with the Sulpizio scheduling. But understand, too, we've gone through a little bit of a transition, so I I know that we're still identifying exactly the time we're allocating.
Right, but I think the point is that for $6,900, there's no way that that equals 12% of the
Administrative budget?
Of the administrative
No,
time.
it
So-
doesn't. I mean, that number is
so I-
probably 25,000.
Right.
Just to give you an idea, because our administrative cost is probably about 400 presently. So that was the intent behind that, is to offset those costs. And it's not to create ill feeling within the community. We've been asked to generate revenue and cover our costs, and we're looking for creative ways to do that. And in my opinion, those have to be palatable within the community, hence, not wanting to put a fee rate out there for those adult softball leagues right this moment, but looking at the ones where we think that we can do this and put this on a fall implementation schedule.
But those adult fall softball leagues or spring softball leagues, I mean, we have no idea if those people are from Radnor or not. Probably at least half of them are not from Radnor. I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't be charging them a fee to use those fields.
Absolutely.
Talk
Well, they're
about-
not using them in the fall, so
Yeah.
that's part of why I'm not trying to
Right.
fast track that. And that's one of those pieces that we need to understand too, is what's that composition. Man, we know a lot of the people who participate in those programs, they work in Radnor, but we don't know exactly how many of them actually live in Radnor.
Right,
And
right.
that definitely is a key to that conversation.
But again, the revenue piece is so small that if you charge them too much and they go away, then our fields are a little healthier from not getting used as much. So to me, it's a win-win either way. Charge them something, and if they don't want to pay it, then they can move on, and the fields don't take the beating.
Tammy, are you looking for a recommendation from this board this evening?
I am. I'm looking for input, and if you don't feel comfortable making any type of a recommendation at this moment, I understand that. But I am looking for input because I know this has been a topic that's been going on for about a year, 2 years now, arguably. And I definitely want to make sure that there's continued dialogue so we can move through the process.
This evening, we're really focusing on that third slide where we're talking about $275 per team for the adult leagues, $60 per night for one-shot deals, and the $10 per player and so on, correct?
We're looking at not the 275.
2 and 4
We're looking at the 60,
and 15.
And the 15.
and we're looking at the 15.
Just for a frame of reference, I know this is not a school board meeting or anything. Are they charging in a similar framework that they charged your summer programs for use of facilities at? Namely, is it a flat fee from the high school or from the school district to use a field per team? Is that how they do it there, or are they looking at hours and so on, security and police and so on and so forth? Do they factor that in, and is there a number? And I understand why you want to keep our number competitive.
Well, I'm going to put
But-
that up on the board right now, so Jim, if you could switch over to the overhead. So I'm gonna show the illustration of what exactly their fee schedule is. He'll zoom. Specifically the highlighted. So if you're looking at the bottom part of that sheet, it represents the high school rates, which we can probably focus on for the matter of this conversation. So up above, there's a classification system that, hold on.
If it's a nonprofit group versus an adult company league and so on and so forth, right? Yes.
So the classification system, as you can see, sits there to the right. I know it's hard for him to zoom in just on both. It would have to be
And
one
those
or the
rates
other.
are per hour?
Those rates are based on a 4-hour block of usage. Jim, if you could and zoom in on this one. So if you look here, Prevost, which is highlighted in the orange, it's the third orange line down there at the bottom. that's what there's a no charge in that first column. The first column actually represents the school-sponsored activities, which have no rental fee. And then under Class B, which is the second column, that represents the district and school-related parent organizations and foundations. Class C, which would be the third column over, is what they have currently implemented for the community sports groups. Now, I'm sure Bob could speak to the degree of anything that's been paid, but it's my understanding that the community sports groups aren't actually paying any of these fees at this given time. They're not. He's indicating that they're not. So I see there's some fees sitting on that column, but there was some discussions relevant to this back in the spring where these fees were not going to be charged. And it's my understanding there is no intent currently for an implementation of those. So specifically, the far columns there, as you get further over, are more of the local for-profit organizations, private schools, and those other types of organizations. In those last 2 and 3 columns is where you'll see those given fees.
Would the baseball field fee of $75 on the far right then be what we would be considering most likely for the adult softball leagues?
I believe that's what they were charged. Per 4 hours. Per 4-hour block.
They very rarely go into extra innings.
A minimum, just to get that frame of reference, you can't say we're going to just charge you 1 hour. You get it for 4 hours for $75, and that's it. Then you look at what we're offering, it's $275 per team for the whole season. So they would be paying, and if we're saying that there's probably 10 weeks in a season, I could safely assume that, or not safely, I'll just make the assumption, they would be paying approximately $750 for their use of a grass field for their season.
That sounds right. I think it was somewhere between I think it was somewhere between $500 and $700. One of the gentlemen indicated that as part of that group, one of those groups.
And although they're not charging our youth groups right now, the fee schedule would, if this is an approved fee schedule, would provide them a fee structure to charge you guys later on, or don't want to direct my attention to Bob, but to you, that some of the Radnor youth groups could be paying $10 per 4-hour block of time.
I don't think that's the intent based on the discussions that had taken place.
But if their proposal,
Yeah.
but it's,
Are you referring to our fee schedule?
no, I'm talking about the fee schedule that's up there, if I cannot.
Theirs?
Yes, they have approved this fee schedule. They have elected not to impose that fee at this particular time, but this is an approved fee schedule. So sometime down there in the future, they could be charging $10 for a 4-hour block of time at a field that the Radnor youth groups would be paying.
You know what? The first column, just for clarification, refers to A and B. Looking here at this, I know
Okay.
it's hard to. I should have had that on the computer
charge.
there. A and B were the no charge. So Class
Okay.
C is actually column 2, the second column over. So that's no charge. So if where you see baseball field right there, that's no charge.
Okay, so they have approved no charge for those fields.
Yeah, this would be their column.
Okay.
And that was the understanding that they left previous conversations with, is that there wouldn't be a fee for exterior usage.
Yes.
I'd like to move for approval of the proposed department consolidated fee schedule for 2012, 2013.
Second.
Any discussion? No?
I don't love it, I'm sorry. And here's why. One, I'm confused by it a little bit, so I'd like to take a little more time to digest it, number one. Number two, I think the adult fee for non-Radnor groups seems low to me. And if I go pick up basketball, I'm asked to pay $5 each time I go. That's nothing to me, or to any of the guys that would go pick up basketball. So if you got a bunch of guys playing softball, 20 guys in the field, $5 a piece, it's $100 each time they use a field. I don't think that's unreasonable to request that.
Well, if it's not being, the team fee is not being proposed here. Are you referring to the $60?
Well, that's where I'm confused.
Okay.
The charge confused me. I'm
Sorry.
No, I'm just,
Jim, if you could switch back over to the screen.
It's basically just like St. Catherine, Sacred Heart, and such.
At the top,
just,
at the top
Two and
has
four on this sheet. Chris,
what's that $60 per field?
$60 per field fee.
that's one. And
Would
then
just be a
four.
basic
Number
field fee. It would apply to everyone right now.
I'm sorry, to everyone?
To those users identified within that description there, as far as, groups that could be, it could be adult groups, it could be
Anybody wants to
young
use
groups.
one of our fields that
Yes.
isn't a Radnor community organization.
They could be a Radnor community organization, but in most cases, well, if it's a Radnor community organization, it's actually going to be, it's a Radnor youth group down below, which was previously the $10 per head, which the Board of Commissioners had repealed. I'm not proposing a fee for them. So none of our youth sports groups, baseball, soccer, Legion baseball, none of our community public groups, the school district, would be charged any of these fees. Well, sometimes we get contacted by adult baseball groups, men's groups, things like that, that want to come out and they want to rent the field, they want to have a game, they want to have a practice, but it's only once. So the team fee is more, it's extended usage. They're using fields for 6, 8, 10-week periods. So that's where the no, they would just be $6 for one night of usage, one usage. So
for the season, we're not making the record.
no, because I think that needs a lot of continued exploration on my end and discussions, like I mentioned, with those groups.
per person.
Which will apply to the schools that they have.
Correct.
The restricted organizations, private groups, private organizations.
Tammy, not to prolong the discussion, but the 275 hours per team should, I don't know, since I don't administer it, would it be advisable to put a maximum time on there? What happens if an adult softball league wants to play once a week as opposed to an adult softball league that plays 3 times a week? They're getting 3 times the use of our fields at the same rate that someone else. Should we, I don't know, I don't want to tie up your hands more administratively, but, could you put a maximum number of events on there? I don't know. What
We
does
could
a
say
youth-
like not to
exceed 10 or 15 or something, whatever you have found.
Yes, and that's why I need to understand those groups a little bit
why
more.
that's-
And
that was
that's
not being
where the
proposed, right?
no, and that's not being
Correct.
nothing's being proposed
That was not
relevant to
under
that fee right
consideration
now
tonight.
because I do need to
It's only the
understand.
second and the fourth.
In the right,
Okay, second and
far
fourth.
right column.
The $60 per night
Yes.
and the 15
Yeah.
per player fee
Yes.
per program.
Okay, fine, I understand, thank you.
There's more.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Moving forward, I want to recognize that our fee schedule, our township fee schedule, doesn't currently show the fee to rent Radnor Memorial Field, our turf field, our one and only turf field. Per the lease that was created with Agnes Irwin, there was a fee that was identified in which that field would be rented to non-sponsored groups through the township or Agnes Irwin, meaning for us, our community sports groups. They would be sponsored under the township, so there wouldn't be a fee for them. But any of these outside users or potential renters for Radnor Memorial Field would be $200 per hour. In terms of their usage. I want to make a recommendation that we do look at that fee. I think we should consider it for the future. Are we comfortable with that fee? Do we think it should be block-based or something similar to the school district?
Well, the sentence here of the $200 per hour fee identified in the lease, are you saying that in the lease that the township has with Agnes Irwin, we've agreed to the $200 figure?
Yes, the township has.
Then how could we do it differently?
We'd have to make an amendment to the lease and recommend an amendment to the lease. And I know that would be a a very long process to go through that, but I just want to make
Just
sure.
the legal fees alone would cost more than any revenue we would get from doing the fee.
And I'm happy to leave it alone, but I want to, it's been brought to my attention.
If it's in the lease, then.
I'm a
Sorry, if it's in the
contingency
lease.
lawyer, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, if it's in the lease, then it would seem to me that there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it. But at that $200 per hour, I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot of revenue generated.
So I do want to point out that, we have had inquiries to rent the field
Sure.
for sports teams, and it has been, a fee that's been balked at.
It might be worth the solicitor reaching out to Nick to see if it's an option or if it's worth a discussion. Great. If it's going to be a whole lot more, then you know what, I would say not.
Yeah, I wouldn't amend the lease agreement.
No.
What I would do is do a memo of understanding, something that's 2 pages, to see if they
Yeah.
would go along with that.
I think that's
rather
something
than-
the solicitor should reach out to Nick, who's representative of Agnes Irwin, to see if they object to us altering that from the township standpoint. And if they're agreeable, great. If they're not, then obviously there's not much there's in there to do.
And the good news is that the field's being utilized very heavily, so, and when it's not being utilized heavily by the community sports groups in Agnes Irwin, what we want to do is encourage the public to go out and use it, of course. It's on a public park, and they should experience it.
Yep.
So the next part of this is to take a look at some of the other areas that are potentially open for renting within our park structure. The top part of the slide here talks to you about what we've done relevant to other park areas in terms of fees, and it's primarily based on picnics with the pavilion usage and the non-pavilion usage areas like the Willows, Clemacrone, and other picnic rows that we have that aren't pavilion areas, and you could see the fees there and how those have been allocated. I'm not proposing any changes to those. What I am proposing that we take a look at is an evaluation of our basketball courts, our tennis courts, and other park areas for potential ability to be permitted for usage at a $30 per hour rate. We get inquiries a lot about, I think I've had in the last 6 months about 5 for tennis usage, probably about the last year about 10 for local businesses and organizations that want to do yoga, that they want to do personal fitness training, they want to do exercise type programs. I do want to point out that this would exclude the Radnor Trail. It would exclude the township other trail areas that exist, the skate park and areas like that, and also that it would be an understanding with those park areas and grassland areas that we might want to rent to a group that wants to do a yoga. They want to do a 10-person yoga class or a yoga trial. We've had businesses in Wayne contact us to do things like that. We would work very closely with our Public Works Department to make sure that the space we'd use is a space we would want to rent, or that we would want to have folks doing whatever type of activity it is that they would be doing on that particular space.
Just a question for you. Again, I don't want to be argumentative, but take a company right now who wants to do a yoga class, employees, and they go to Clemacrone Park. What's to prevent them from doing that right now? And by doing this for, $30 an hour, I always look at the end product too. How are you going to police that? I guess it was gracious enough or nice enough for a company to call you and say, hey, we want to have a group of employees to go over there and do a yoga class. Where do you begin and stop policing that activity? Or somebody here, if you're saying a picnicking area, private educational organizations or programs, what happens if, the Smith family from Conestoga Road wants to have a big family reunion and not at Fenimore Woods, but a park? Does that mean that they're going to have to get it for $30 per hour? I can understand when you go over to Fenimore Woods, okay, because you have the pavilion and things like that. Are we getting into something like that by doing $30 per hour for park area permitting fee?
I can only speak to company I work with. if you're planning an event and you're having folks coming in from, wherever, and you want to be secure that you've got a field and you're able to pull off your event, that you want to have a permit or something that says, you know what?
That no one else can use it.
Correct. Now, to your point, who's going to police that? Who's going to say that other companies or other organizations are doing the same thing? I don't know that you really can.
I guess I just see a problem with
Yeah.
designating an area. If we go out to one of our park areas, it's an open area.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a community person who wants to, hey, what do you mean I can't go out and use my park today?
Right.
I don't care whether you have a piece of paper or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you're going to you're going to have to call the local police to come in and arbitrate this thing. I don't know whether we're going to create something. I can see Fenimore Woods,
Potentially,
definitely
you're
with
right.
that, but
We're looking for a way to address the requests that we get from businesses and organizations, established groups that, and they
Talking about like
contact.
Platoon Fitness or
Yes,
something like that.
and they
that
contact
actually
us,
for
and they have
profit, go
contacted
and
us.
do
They-
I
work.
they've
agree,
been
but
in touch
yeah,
with
I
us.
have an issue with Platoon Fitness
Right.
not having something approved and paying for it.
Right, but SunGuard going out with 10 people to do yoga in the afternoon or something like that, maybe not a company sponsor, maybe a group of people, that shouldn't, you're not
Just
talking
like
about
if a
something
group
like
of
that.
residents did, and we
Right.
would encourage that kind of usage, as a matter
Right.
of fact. If it was something where these individuals, though, were paying that yoga instructor to participate in that group, then it's a different story, and that's the one we hear a lot. And there's also, the liability side. These groups would be required to provide us with, a insurance certificate, of course, if they're going to use that space and conduct any type of an organized activity on it. What we're looking for is a way to address that. I mean, the tennis courts are a huge example. We get USTA groups and private instructors all the time that want to go out and do go out. And then we hear about it from the police department, because if they don't have a permit, they do ask them to leave if they're aware of the usage going on. We just recently had it happen over the summer, where they had a gentleman at Philippone giving lessons, and he was asked to leave because he was not formally permitted to be there. He had paid people in a class. And, it's something that we would want to, we want to try to develop a plan for, so that we have, not something where we can provide, a service, we can provide an opportunity. We don't want to tie up tennis courts. So it would come with the caveat that we would leave a tennis court open. One would always have to remain open to the public. And if we had something else that was, going on there, like if we knew there was a group of residents that every day they use the 3 courts, that are at the park, we wouldn't permit that usage.
Yeah, I would
Or
agree,
like I
because
said-
that's where you probably will run into some community opposition. If I'm paying large tax dollars right now, I want to have the availability, if I want to grab my racket and a couple of friends and go over and play tennis, and not to encounter somebody saying, well, sorry, I paid $30, I'm going to use this. No. That will present some problems, and
Sure.
it could be an outcry from some community people saying, what's happening?
And over the years here, I know, working here all the years that I've been, I know how the residents respect and enjoy their public facilities. But by the same token, I guess what I'm trying to understand is there a way to have a fit for both? Is it possible?
So your goal is really to try and accommodate those organizations that want to pay a modest fee so that they can run some sort of activity in one of our facilities. You're not looking to exclude public access, but
No.
you are looking to kind of organize private utilization. Is that seems
Or
reasonable.
legitimize it? I know that it does go on, and they're going to be asked to leave, and then those groups inevitably get in contact with us, and then we have the hard conversations with them.
And then what happens now? What if Platoon Fitness, when Pat's running his group to go over to Fenimore, and Pat's being paid $25 to do that by the group, and he calls up your office and says, I want to do this, how's that addressed today?
Today, we tell them that we don't have a plan for that type of usage on our facility. We preclude it. We would preclude it from taking place, and we would ask the group not to be there. And if they are, they'll get a visit from
See.
RPD.
I do think that it's a slippery slope, and again,
It
I
is.
don't want to be argumentative,
Yep.
but if I'm getting here with $30 an hour, and I'm going to run Platoon Fitness, and I have 40 people signed up who will be paying me $50 an hour for me to instruct it, I'm walking out with a very cheap rate to use a facility that if I went to a commercial gym or something, you're not going to get it for $30 an hour. Now, granted, it's an extreme. I think that probably would have to be looked at. I think $30 an hour for a facility. I know if it's a tennis court, that's damn cheap to get a tennis court.
Well, I
And then
did
I
take a
don't
look
know.
at the neighbors. I looked at Tredyffrin, looked at Lower Merion, and our rate was around, it was in line. I mean, I saw everything from 20 to 60. And I tried to find a good fit, and I had in mind, of course, the residents, because a lot of these are resident-based businesses and resident-based groups that contact us.
Tammy, what's your rationale for excluding the skate park?
Because it's heavily utilized. It's a one-type facility. It's unique, similar to the Radnor Trail. We really only have one of them. And like I said, if we were to have some sort of an organized usage there, it would greatly impact the daily usage. You know, I can definitely tell you that having windows on this side of the building, we're able to look at it every day after school, and the facility's loaded with people, just as you know the Radnor Trail is too. So that would be an area that I would definitely not recommend. It would impact the current daily usage of our public too much, as it would in some of these other areas, which is why we would want to scrutinize each of these as they come through to us to make sure that it's a good fit. And I would want to make sure that there's some sort of policy in place with detail to actually say to these potential groups that here's the understanding that we need to have with you before you use this space. And I understand that it is a little bit of a slippery slope. Like I said, I know
I could probably go along with it a little easier if it was a one-time usage, but not encumbering township facilities on an extended basis. For example, somebody like trying to plan a 10-session workout. If it's a one-time thing, hey, yeah, we're going to charge you $30. It kind of covers the administrative cost. But if someone's going to try and look to rent something on a longer basis, I would want to know what's motivating them, and you got to provide me some more details as to what you're going to do. I wouldn't want to ride down Radnor Chester Road and see a sign, sign up for Platoon Fitness. It's going to be at Enke Park on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. That's my concern with it.
Tammy, how many tennis courts and basketball courts do we have?
3 basketball courts. We've got Clem-Macrone. We've got Cowan, South Devon, Odoricio, so 4. Court usage is not, court requested usage is not high.
Right.
I can honestly tell you in 13, 14 years of being here, I think I've had 1 inquiry.
Right.
Which we worked with. I think it was actually a board member, to be honest with you, in a group. And then from public tennis courts, obviously we've got Clem-Macrone, Philippone. The middle school courts, which had been known as being ours, I understand, or do belong to the school district. I know that that's still being vetted out through Cressa, who's our firm that's looking at all of our properties. And Nathan, which belongs to the school district.
Right. I guess my thought is we don't have a whole lot of courts or basketball or tennis courts, and the revenue we would get from renting them out would be minimal. I would actually recommend that we don't rent them out, then keep them available for township residents.
And we can continue to have this dialogue.
Yeah.
I, again, want to bring it to your attention because it's something that we face every day. Not every day, but it's something that we face. We face these types of inquiries. It's sort of part of what, we communicate about at times, and it's just, it's prudent for me to bring it to your attention and take a look at it, and I respect and value your input.
What are the thoughts of the board to maybe make a motion on the first portion and possibly table the other one for further discussion or further thoughts?
That would be to table the part on Radnor Memorial and the park and picnic area and
Yeah.
court usage?
Yeah, well, I think Radnor Memorial, you're going to have the solicitor reach out to Nick and see if there's any opportunity there. The 60 and the 15 per head, which we talked about first, I think, I think we could potentially take a vote on that. And then I guess the last part, which was the park picnic area or the court park area usage fee, maybe we have further discussion and or thought on that in September or October.
I agree with that.
Any
I
thoughts
think that's a
on
good
that?
idea. Did you just motion that?
Huh?
Would you like me to restate the
Why don't you
motion?
restate your motion?
Restate the motion for the consideration of the approval of the athletic field fee schedule, specifically fall 2012 proposed amendment rate, item $60 per field, and item $15 per person / per season.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, and from here, I will attempt to have this on the agenda for September 24th for the Board of Commissioners to review. So this doesn't mean that it goes into effect. This means that now I get to stand and have the conversation with the commissioners. So,
All right.
but I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to review it and also be very clear that, you know, we want the public to go out and enjoy the parks and enjoy
Right.
the fields. That's why they're there, and that's, you know, part of their taxpayer dollars, you know, going to towards those facilities. We're just looking to find, you know, like I said, you know, some creative things that we can do here and, you know, ways that we can, you know, have sort of the best of both worlds. So I thank you tonight for allowing me 2 hours of your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tammy. And that
Thanks.
covers the consolidated fee schedule, right?
You
We
had
can-
to ask that question.
We can take that, we can wait. It covered most of the parts for that. I will review the consolidated fee schedule that will ultimately go to the commissioners, which includes the Willows rates and includes the Sulpizio rates
Okay.
and the most impactive to the changes to that you saw here tonight.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other old business? Is there any public participation?
Good evening, Bob Nicholas. Just on that $60 thing that you just approved, I do have a concern because of the way it's stated that there should be some criteria for review by the Recreation Department, because I could see somebody coming in and wanting to do an all-day or two-day grass volleyball tournament at Philippone Park near my house and fill it up with hundreds of people, because
But
it's only
doesn't-
$60 a day.
But doesn't it only, I think it's.
There's two fields there, so maybe it's $120
Or are we
a
talking
day.
about applying it to
Also,
St. Catherine's, Sacred Heart, and?
No, this is the per usage, the $60 per usage, one-time fee. The
But-
one-time usage or per usage fee.
But I think implicit in that is it's the discretion of the Township Park and Recreation Group to understand what's being requested and to deny any that they would feel.
Right, but when you publish a fee like that, then somebody, if you don't have any rules around it, then you potentially have an argument with people saying, well, wait a minute, your rules, you publish this thing and it says $60 and I want two fields and I'm going to have, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, I think there's a lot of detail that surrounds a permit request
Right.
that.
Right, but
that
you
they would-
don't want to
they would
be
do.
in like a deny situation all the time, because it may be something, it's just like, you have to have some parameters around it. Because typically what we think about is a field that maybe you have 20 people, maybe 30 people at the most, and they're on it for a couple hours. And you turn that into an all-day event, and more people than you expected because they have a bigger field where there's more space. So whether it's guidelines or something that they can implement, my reaction was, it sounds great, but
Yeah, I would also
somebody
think that's
might
all
be
part of
able to
the
abuse it.
permit application process, just like it is for Fenimore Woods or,
Right.
yeah. So that's all, I mean, those questions are all on the application
Right, how
itself.
many people you have, who's
Correct.
in charge, how many hours you're going to have, right. But it seems like, if somebody's going to use it for an all-day event, it's, versus in one evening, it's like, well, wait a minute, and I think that's why the school district went towards the hourly or 4-hour block type arrangement, because they didn't want to have to deal with counting individual hours, and they also didn't want to have somebody have a whole day, so it was a compromise, their design, I mean, they came up with the compromise. But just a suggestion.
Great.
'cause-
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm comfortable adding to the fee schedule specifically a statement that does imply that it's at the discretion.
Perfect.
The time frame is at the discretion of the township and, the recreation department staff, and we can incorporate that into that. That way, we can screen out something that might be an all-day usage like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
We're adjourned.